it's really hard to just, when you're on a patrol with 100 other people, to just sit there and stop and say, oh, I want to stop and take pictures for 30 minutes. You don't have that luxury. You're walking and you're in a formation with these people, so you have to constantly be moving while taking pictures. So I don't have the luxury of always looking through the lens. I don't have the luxury of stopping and getting these photos that I want and framing them. I have to constantly be moving, so it's really hard. You learn to contort your bodies in certain ways. You learn to pretty much never look through the viewfinder of the camera. You just don't have time. So as unprofessional and bad as it sounds, a lot of times my photos are me sticking my camera way up in the air or way down low or way out to the side and just spraying and praying and hoping I get something. My name's Staff Sergeant Ryan Crane. I'm a photojournalist for the United States Air Force. I guess as long as I remember, I've always at least been around photography. I got to be a sophomore in high school, and my school offered a photography class. I needed an art credit, so everything kind of worked out perfectly. So I went in the class. It was one of the traditional black room, roll your own film, go in there blind and learn how to do that, and I loved it. I was taking crappy pictures of trees and fences and fans and whatever, but I loved it. I was interested and I was hooked from that point on. My dad was in the Air Force my whole life growing up. It's all I really knew. He told me, I was like, hey, there's these guys that run around on base and just take pictures all day. You could see about doing that. I'm like, that sounds perfect, sign me up. I was by no means an expert on photography when I came in, but I had a desire to learn. I had a passion for it. I really liked it. I'd bring my camera gear home every single night, and I would shoot stupid stuff in my dorms and practice doing different lighting, and I'd travel out and take pictures of people's cars and other people. I just liked to learn. I was online learning everything that I could, going to as many classes as I could, and ultimately just picking people's brains that knew more than I did. And it was just something that I really cared about, so I invested a lot of time into it. Yeah, I guess as experimental as it gets. By trade, I'm a photojournalist. My job is to tell stories, news type things. But in the Air Force, because we don't really have people who specialize in every single type of photography, you're encouraged to learn new things. So throughout the years, I've kind of taught myself a lot of studio techniques and maybe some long exposure type stuff, learning off-camera flash, different types of lighting situations, graphic illustrations, photo illustrations, just a lot of different types of photography, basically a jack of all trades, master of none type thing, where I get the ability to go out and try these things. I'm by no means like the best or anywhere near the best, but I learn along the way, and I guess that's what experimentation is about, is just trying different things and see how it works. And you learn a lot from it that way, I think. A photojournalist in the Air Force does a couple things. We're obviously photographers and we're journalists. They try to combine us all into one package. More with less is basically what we're doing these days. So when I'm stateside, my job is to take pictures and to train. I do a lot of training stateside. And it's pretty mundane, just average photography jobs working for the base newspaper. But when I deploy, I get a chance to do something different. And that's my favorite part of the job is, not everyone gets a chance to travel to the places that the military goes to. How many people go to Afghanistan? How many people go to Iraq? How many people are going to Northern Africa? How many people get to go to Honduras and document the efforts of the military there? So I like the fact that this is unique. Not many people get these opportunities, and I've been given that opportunity. When you're deployed, there's a certain brotherhood, I guess, that you have of people that you're there with. You're all away from your family, you're away from your friends. You may or may not have met these people before. And I think it's just great that I get to go there and I get to tell their stories. That's my favorite part. Joe Schmo from small town Massachusetts, he's in the National Guard and he works a day job making minimum wage. But when he goes and he's in the military, he's in the Army and he deploys to Afghanistan, he's there with his brothers. He's there with his friends, and he's laying his life on the line for those people, and I get to tell that story. That's kind of cool to me. In the Air Force, you're a photographer. You're not combat camera, you're not public affairs, you're a photojournalist, you're a photographer. Everyone is the same thing. We could all get pulled at any moment to deploy, and it's one of those things where no matter who you are, you have to be ready to go and enter a combat environment and put yourself in that kind of situation. As much as I want to, my job is to be a photographer at all times, but you never know when I'm going to have to, turn off the camera and pick up a gun, or, help my buddy who just got shot. I have to know how to save his life. I have to know how to drive that truck, all while being able to take pictures. And I think that that's the most important part of that training is being able to understand when my job stops becoming being a photographer and turn into a soldier. There have been a few close calls where we've taken some pretty indirect, inaccurate fire, found some IEDs on the road where if we had not have found them, we would have taken casualties. I think everyone gets scared when they go overseas. They know what they're doing. I mean, everyone that signed up after September 11th, they know that it's not a question of if you go, it's when you go, and everyone knows what they're doing. Especially when you're going to a place like Afghanistan and doing the mission that we did there, you know that there's a potential. And of course you get scared. Before we left for training, our commander made sure that every single one of us wrote letters to our spouses, to our kids, to our family members, and that was the hardest thing. I never thought that would be the hardest thing to do, but I'm sitting here like on my laptop bawling my eyes out while I talk to my daughter as if I'm dead. How terrible is that? I mean, it's stuff you don't want to think about, but it's absolute reality.
Happy birthday, dear Mackenzie. Cha cha cha. Happy birthday to you. Cha cha cha.
Blow it out. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, everyone's scared. But when you get over there and you have a job to do and you're sitting in the back of that truck and you're like, man, today could be my day, it hurts you more to think about it at that point. If you get it all out beforehand, it's a lot easier. If you're so scared that you can't react and you can't protect that guy next to you or do your job, then you're no help to anyone over there. So yes, to a certain extent, being scared and understanding the reality is a great thing, and it's a survival tool. But at some level, you have to be able to turn that off and just do your job. I think that's what's most important. I would say that this last deployment I went on was probably one of the hardest ones. The first time I was deployed, my wife was pregnant with our first kid, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get to go home and see her. I lucked out and I got to go home and be there for the birth, and then I really only missed a couple months of her when she was an infant, and I've been with her ever since. Well, this last one that I went on, I got tagged, and it was a year-long deployment with training. And that one was tough because, I mean, I'm missing essentially a whole year of my daughter's life. I mean, she's been alive for, at that point, a year and a half, and I'm about to go away for a whole other year. I mean, I'm missing literally half of her entire life over that period. So, I mean, it's always tough to leave family. It's definitely no fun. You go into a place with people you've never met before, and it's kind of scary because you're like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I don't know if my family's gonna be okay. Are they gonna get along without me? How's everything gonna work? But in the end, how you interact while you're deployed or while you're downrange is completely dependent on the support you have at home from your family. I don't know what I could do if I had to come off of a mission and go back to work and not be able to just jump on a computer and see my daughter on Skype, or go to a morale phone and talk to my mom. That's what drives you to do what you do every single day down there. If I had nothing to come back to, it would just make it that much harder. The fact that I've got people at home that care about me and they're there for me, that's an important thing. It's a huge lifeline for every single person who's deployed. I would say that it's probably one of the most important things. On a personal level, the stories that I tell, especially the stories where they're interacting with these people and meeting them, to me, it's kind of heartwarming to see that. It's a whole other side of these people. These are hardened warriors that, you see them running and diving and shooting and throwing grenades and all this stuff in training. Just badass dudes. And then you see them over there and they just kneel down and they smile and laugh and grab this kid's hand, give him a piece of candy, and they'll go back every single week and do that. It's just kind of amazing to see them turn it on and turn it off. And I think that's the most interesting thing, because people look at soldiers and airmen, soldiers, Marines, military members, and they just think these guys are badass, this is them all the time. But they're people. They're just like you and me, where you have compassion and you like to interact with people. And I like those stories. I like showing the other side of things. All right, so this photo, it was taken on a patrol. We were there for 3 days. We pretty much had little to no water, dropped off in the middle of the night. We started taking some pretty indirect fire, so we were hunkered down in this really tall grass in these little rice fields, and we were all just exhausted, nothing left to drink. And I was sitting there waiting for everything to kind of cool down, and I looked over at my buddy who's carrying the big 249. He's got ammo belts across his neck, and he's just dead tired. And I just kind of picked my camera up, and right through the blades of grass, he's sitting there, and you can tell that he's exhausted, and he's just like, when's this day gonna be over? And I was snap, snap, snap. I think it's like 3 frames total. And it was perfect. Everyone loved it. I just want to basically frame a little slice of that person's life and show it in one frame to my viewer. That's ultimately my goal. And I think I've been pretty successful with it. I always have my camera, no matter where I went. I always had my camera with me, even if I was on a mission, even if we were just going to the chow hall or we were playing basketball or something like that. You never know when you're going to get that emotion, that shot that tells you a story. One time we were dismounted and clearing a valley right off the road where there were suspected IEDs. We've been blown up in that area before. So basically what we do is we get out and we sweep and we make sure there's nothing bad out there. So we're walking through this little farm area, and they have rice paddies there. And the rice paddy is exactly what you would think, little square pieces of land with little rice plants full of water. Well, the way to get in and around them, unless you want to get your boots completely wet, is you're walking on a balance beam sized piece of dirt. So, there's 4 of us, 80 pounds worth of gear, walking on this little balance beam. I'm getting cool shots with the foliage, and I'm looking through the lens, and all of a sudden I get vertigo, distortion because of the lens, and I miss my step, and I literally fall like face first into this rice paddy of mud and nastiness, and the little farmer ladies out there just going, and my pride was hurt. I got back up. The guys laughed at me and gave me shit for it. But it was funny, and I always use that as my example that it's not a normal shooting setting. You really have to adapt to where you are, and it's a big learning curve. But it forces you to be a better photographer and to make sure that you make the shots count. So I want these people and these kids to go back home when they leave Afghanistan. They leave. They put the uniform down and they go back to work. They can look back and show their kids and their grandkids that was daddy, that was mommy, and that's kind of a cool feeling to me, is a little piece of history is preserved just through me being there.